B-29s on their raids against Japan. The 29s were all out of Saipan and Tinian, where we had just come from, 700 miles south, and the 51s would pick them up or meet them as they come over Saipan or over Iwo on the way to Tokyo, and escort them to Tokyo and back, which was 1,500 miles up and back to Iwo.
These fighter escort missions, taking the B-29s to Japan from Iwo Jima, took anywhere from 7 to 8 hours to complete. And even though the P-51 was an excellent airplane to fly, the strain on the legs and lower backs of these pilots for flying for that length of time caused many of them to be cramped up when they returned from these missions, to the point where they had to be assisted out of their airplanes by the ground crews. And so to do this day after day, over and over again, took a great deal of courage and stamina on the parts of these pilots.
The first missions we flew were bomber escort, and once we got there and flying up and down the bomber line, we could pick out targets on the ground. We'd go down and nothing definite at first, and later on we had definite targets, like at Sugi Air Base was one of our first targets, and the B-29s would take us up there specifically to make this run on this air base. They'd wait for us offshore. We'd go in, hit the aircraft and installations on these air bases in Japan. B-29s on this type of mission were just escorting us. There are navigational planes, and they'd stay about 20,000 feet offshore, and we always gave them a high cover. At least 4 P-51s stay above them, protecting them, waiting for us to get off the target and come back. On one occasion, after we'd finished working over this target, we homed in on the B-29, sending us the signal, the locator where we could find him. As we approached it, we could see the Japanese starting to make passes on our B-29, which gave us a little bit of worry, because he was our ticket back home. And fortunately, the high cover prevented this, and they shot down the attacking Japanese before we got there.
By the spring of 1945, Mustangs roamed the length and breadth of the Japanese home islands, protecting the heavy bomber streams while searching for targets of opportunity. Japan's interceptor force was soon driven from the skies.
It so happened on this mission over Japan, we were flying in high cover for the B-29s. We were up around 25,000 feet, and suddenly I lost power, and the manifold pressure dropped way back, and I thought I had serious engine problems. I sweated out for a little while, and I called my wingman, so I'm going to have to go down. And I was just looking for a spot to bail out, because this is the day they firebombed Tokyo and Yokohama pretty badly, and the fireballs were coming up 5,000 feet high, and so I thought I'd get out offshore as far as I could if I had to jump out. As I was descending, trying to get my engine running again, we noticed several Tojos below us and climbing towards the B-29s. And I was directly behind one Tojo, and so I just closed in as fast as I could and opened fire. And the debris started flying off, and my wingman shot one on the left side there. So I still was concerned about my engine, but I forgot it during the combat. And I didn't realize till I got well off the target, the engine was running pretty well again.
With little fuel available and even fewer experienced pilots, Japan's air defenses collapsed.
Yes, there was quite a difference in the Japanese pilots near the end of the war. In fact, I think the group we ran into, the Tojos, I think it was just a big training group, because they were just flying. As no evasive attempt or anything on their part. And we just closed in on them and just like shooting ducks. If I had had a better engine, I probably would have stayed longer in that group. But several of them were shot down by the other P-51 pilots.
By the summer of 1945, the Iwo-based Mustangs had gained total control of the skies over Japan. Without fear of interception, the P-51s went down on the deck and searched for targets of opportunity. Nothing was safe from their murderous 50 calibers. When Japan finally surrendered in August of 1945, there were hundreds of P-51s based on Iwo Jima, ready to support the planned invasion of Kyushu. Fortunately, the surrender made that operation unnecessary. In the final months of the war in Europe, almost 2,000 Mustangs protected the American heavy bombers. Such a protective shield proved almost impossible for the Luftwaffe to penetrate. Bomber losses plummeted, and Germany's cities and industries were systematically devastated by the American strategic bombing campaign. With the fighters knocking down every German plane they saw in the sky and the bombers pulverizing Germany's war industry on the ground, the Allied air forces were virtually unopposed in the air. Flak and small arms fire, however, still posed a great threat, especially to the liquid-cooled engine of the Mustang.
We were out on a search and destroy mission. I found 6 German trucks on the road. Went in strafing and set 4 of them on fire on the first pass and pulled up. I had not seen any return fire, so I went back to get the other 2. And when I went back the second time, I find myself going across a open field with 100 German soldiers on their knees with rifles firing at us. And probably they came from the trucks we'd burned. And a P-51 will not take a lot of punishment. If you lose your coolant, you're done. So. And I lost my coolant. I got up to 8,000 feet, and the coolant temperature hit the red peg, and there was no way. I began to lose power. Started calling for Mayday for a fix. I pulled the red handle, and the canopy flew off just like they told me it would. I started to jump, and I had my shoulder straps laying on my shoulder. Pulled me back. I picked up the microphone, said goodbye, undid the shoulder straps, made another jump. I hit the end of the radio cord, couldn't get back, drop back in. As long as I was back, I said goodbye, unplugged the radio, made a third attempt, and got my head out. I'm going 100 miles an hour, 105 maybe, and the wind caught my goggles and pulled them out about a foot from my head. I pulled my head back, and they snapped back, and I dropped back down in the seat. So I plugged the radio in and said goodbye, took the helmet off, and 4th try I got out. Found myself hanging very quietly over a tank battle down below me. Quiet up in the air, no sound in the air, but a lot of sound, gunfire, both heavy and light.